Councilmember Gagliotti.
Here.
Councilmember Lintel. Councilmember Getzel.
Here.
Vice Mayor Clark. Mayor Kerr.
Here. And Jeremy, would you start us with the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Jeremy. And Reverend Collins.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, thank you for the citizens and public servants here. Please bless everyone in this building and everyone who lives or works or visits in Delray Oaks. And may all the decisions made this evening benefit all those people. And thank you for your presence here. Amen.
Thank you. All right, time for public comments. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. Public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered. There will be a time limit of not more than 3 minutes for each speaker. No action will be taken on matters brought up under this item.
Hello, City Council members. I don't know if everybody got a copy. I think we ran out. But today we're celebrating Jane Altavilla, and I'm going to read a little story about her profile. A home of her own. A story about Jane Altavilla, who lives at 16 Carlton Drive since 1969. After looking at over 75 houses, Seaside High School home ec teacher Jane Altavilla brought her husband to look over 16 Carlton Drive. He made sure the floors were level and said, "We're buying it." That was 1969. I think part of my happiness, Jane said, was that my husband and I finally had a home of our own. My parents had always rented, so I felt stability. We used to kidly say that my husband bought me a house with no idea how we were going to pay for it. And to top it off, we had 3 kids. Jane's sense of home was greatly enhanced by the sounds of mating frogs in the spring and the wild tangle of oaks and willows that she could see and appreciate from her porch, which overlooks the frog pond. When the Mormon church, who owned the frog pond then, wanted to sell the property to a condo developer in 1972, she and other Delray Oaks residents joined forces. Jane's secret weapon was a clipboard. She enlisted others and went door knocking to collect signatures. Not everyone wanted to save the frog pond. Jane remembered going door to door with petitions. I always took our daughter with me because people were nicer when I had a child along. We went to the Planning Commission and City Council meetings. In the early 1970s, with community support, this grassroots effort was successful in coordinating the Regional Parks District to purchase and maintain the land. Jane went on to fight against the Current plant, a lacquered plastic work company that was proposed for the 17 acres. And once again, she prevailed. It is still wild. She said, "I was asked to be on the Delray Oaks Planning Commission after the Frog Pond deal was done, and I served from 1974 to 1985. Today, Jane loves sitting on her porch and observing nature. There is a bench she installed just below her property to honor her deceased husband. So I don't know if his spirit comes down to check and see if it's level or not, but try to imagine Delray Oaks without the frog pond. It is truly the gem set in the middle of our little community. Let's learn the lesson from Jane and the others who work to preserve the frog pond. Never give up. Bring a kid with you when you go door knocking, and revel in the space that was preserved for all to enjoy." So. And if anybody hasn't done it, please go get a piece of chocolate volcano cake to celebrate Jane.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Jane.
It's a pleasure to live in Delray Oaks. I love it here.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dennis Alling, Delray Oaks, 402 Drive. I just wanted to, first of all, say that there's nothing on the agenda tonight about the airport, is there? Okay, great. Because First of all, let me state that I have no feelings one way or the other. I am not biased about an airport road or no airport road. What I wanted to express was a thought that I wanted to share with people at the Delray Oaks. And that is that I observed a lot of passion around this, and it's the caution that I'd like to express is that this passion seems to override common sense in some respect. The airport is a long-established facility. It was used during World War II. The Navy did flight training here. It's existed here for a long time. And I personally enjoyed the fact that the other day I was able to fly in and out of the Monterey Airport on a trip to Texas. It was convenient. And thanks to the Monterey Salinas Transit, it only cost me $3 to ride to the airport and back on a taxi. So I think it's very important that we not lose sight of the fact that we're neighbors to the airport, that we have things that they want to preserve this neighborhood. Change is going to happen regardless of what we do. The airport will find a way to gain access to the north side of the airport. I'm telling you, I believe that strongly. They will figure it out. And that we, by resisting and not negotiating with the airport over this road issue, will have lost our only option to help control the noise, to help control the amount of fuel that is being dumped over people's houses when airplanes go over. We will have lost that opportunity. And I just want to express that caution that I think we have potentially made a mistake by stonewalling them on this issue. If you have a business deal or you have somebody, a neighbor that you want to negotiate with, it's better to talk with them in a civil way and try to work things out. Again, I don't propose, I'm not a proponent of the road through Delray Oaks. It's a small piece of property, but I'm not necessarily for it or against it. I'm just saying I think we are losing an opportunity here to try and negotiate with the airport and deal with noise issues, deal with fuel issues, deal with the flight school that's over there and their flight patterns. We're losing it. So that's all I wanted to say about that, and thank you very much.
Linda Richardson, via Brady. I would like to add that to Dennis's comments, I am definitely not for the road, would not like to see it happen. However, I've been watching in the last week or so surveys going on down in that neck of the woods where it's going to come out on 218. And I'm concerned that they're, as Dennis said, they're going to find a way to get it done. And I hope not, but there are all kinds of appeals that go up and up and up the chain. And I think that will happen. I think it's a done deal. Regarding the negotiations that are possible if we work with them, there might be the possibility of, I don't know what I use the word, but capitalization on the fees that the airport district has to pay to Monterey, because it's in Monterey's district, that we might be able to get a percentage of that for the encroachment that they're getting. We have to get something out of the deal. We have to be able to negotiate to get something back for the inconvenience that it's going to cause. That's all I need to say.
Thanks, Linda.
I don't know if you can answer a question. Katie Krieger, Cape Cod, but I was wondering if we have any information about the airport at one time being a Superfund site. I do believe that it was a Navy airport at one time, and that there have been that it had the status of a Superfund site, and I'm wondering about the impact of runoff and the loss of land on the airport ground to absorb the runoff. And I'm wondering, when will we get more information about those potential impacts, if indeed, and how, if it was a Superfund site, which I believe it was, how it was remedied and if it has been remedied completely. So those are just some of the concerns I have about that, and then the impact of, expanding that, not just the traffic on 218, because that's a big deal to me, but also what about the impact of runoff and not having ground to absorb it? Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, public comment closed. We're going to move on to staff reports. City manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An update on our Fort property. A lot's happened since we last met. The development partnership that the city was negotiating with dissolved before signing an agreement with the city. After agreeing to sign the agreement and after having council approve the agreement for signature. So we were left with a very unexpected dissolution of the partnership that we had been working with for some time, better part of a year, in excess of a year. There was an Association of Defense Communities conference in Monterey immediately following that dissolution. And we had the opportunity to speak at a panel to developers, and frankly, I was telling the story of the Fort Ord property in Delray Oaks. And up until 3 days before the conference, it had a happy ending. And at the conference, it turned out that it didn't have a happy ending in the sense that we didn't have a partnership any longer, which actually generated a lot of interest in our property because there were developers in the audience. Staff, after consulting with council individually with updates, put together an advertisement for the property, a request for qualifications. That request for qualifications has been on the website, the city's website, for probably about 10 days now, and we have a pretty robust amount of interest in our property. We've shown the property to about half a dozen developers, and are continuing to work with them, and we'll get responses in the next 10 days to our RFQ. So that's the update on Fort Ord property. Staff met with a human resources consultant to discuss the scope of work. We're bringing on an HR consultant to help the city go through everything that we do from an HR perspective, update our policies and practices with regard to human resources practices. Denise Duffy and I spoke with Housing and Community Development Department in Sacramento about the status of our housing element that was submitted several weeks ago. We received comments back from HCD from Sacramento, and Denise and our team took those comments in, made edits to the draft, and resubmitted last Friday. And so we continue to make good progress towards our objective of having an adopted, approved housing element with the state by the end of the calendar year. I attended an annual League of Cities conference in Long Beach last week. We learned a couple of critical things. The main thing here for this group is that we thought we were ineligible for Senate Bill 2 planning grant funds because our housing element was not current. And it turns out that we are eligible if we are making substantial progress on our housing element, which we are. And so we learned at that conference that we may end up being eligible for planning grant funds. Our city is earmarked to receive $165,000 in grant funds if we make it. And so as a result of that conference, we're working pretty diligently at this point to complete what is a 12-page application and submit it to the state by the deadline, which is the end of November. It will include a council resolution, which will bring to council at the next opportunity. And hopefully we can avail ourselves of those grant funds, which will be used to implement the components of our housing law, such as an accessory dwelling unit ordinance, a zoning ordinance update, and so on. Staff attended the Citizens Action Group meeting over the month. There was a good discussion about the upcoming beautification project on the Rosita Triangle, scheduled for October 26th, and of course an update on Santa's workshop scheduled for December. Staff is working with Fora to prepare an agreement to transfer the capital project that is the South Boundary Road reconstruction project from Fora as it approaches sunset in June of 2020 to control by the city. And we've just begun working on that agreement. The mayor and I met with California Native Plant Society leadership several weeks ago. The meeting focused on getting to know each other. We had never met. I had never met them. I think the mayor had only briefly met a few of them. And started to talk about what are the objectives that CNPS has relating to the CNPS area on our Fort Worth property, and how the South Boundary Road project will coincide with those objectives. We met with the Fora transition consultant, Ms. Kendall Flint, who briefed council before regarding Fora transition agreements. As part of the city's efforts on transition, staff began initial discussions about development impact fees. As you may know, Fora has development impact fees that developers pay to build on Fort North property. When Fora sunsets, those development fees go away, and we need to find a replacement funding mechanism to fund habitat management as well as public infrastructure on our Fort property. So we've begun those discussions as well. At the last Planning Commission meeting, staff discussed the review process for projects in the public space. Based on a very productive discussion with planning commissioners, staff is presenting an amended fee schedule tonight for council consideration that will allow a public benefit project, which we need to define, to have a reduced or no conditional use permit fee when brought to the planning commission for consideration. Public Works continues to knock it out of the park for us. Ron Pucci placed cement pads under our new trash and recycling containers. He cleaned the perimeter fencing at the dog park, repaired the bench at Rosita Triangle that a car that lost control ran over, and continues weed abatement along our creek in anticipation of the rainy season. Public Works also seeded the baseball field, and we've got the outfield kind of growing in as sprouting new grass. And he's put clay in the infield, and he's put a pitcher's mound together, and we're really starting to get that baseball field in shape for Little League to take over next spring. During an annual visit to the city from California Recycle from Sacramento, we had an excellent annual review, and we were joined by representatives from Green Waste Recovery and the Waste Management District. The city continues to be 100% compliant with the requirements of state law regarding commercial businesses diverting food waste out of the waste stream to be used as either compost or energy purposes in the anaerobic digester, which is a really neat little thing at the Waste Management District. We discussed the need to prepare for mandatory residential food waste diversion, which will become mandatory in 2022. So that will entail a new container at each residence, potentially some additional costs, but that's something we've got to work through in order to be compliant with state law. AMBAG staff provided the city staff with previous city greenhouse gas emissions inventories. There have been 3 done over the past 20 years. The city has made good progress over the past 15 years in reducing GHGs with replacement of inefficient light fixtures with energy efficient LEDs, as well as other energy saving measures. Staff attended a town hall meeting with Congressman Panetta where Monterey Bay Community Power board members discussed their programs with residents of both Delray Oaks and Seaside. Staff attended the Monterey One water ribbon cutting on Friday. The project represents an important component in helping solve the region's water supply challenges. Staff met with Jeff Condit and Scott Atmar on our annual stormwater audit, which is an annual requirement to go through how we are compliant or not compliant with our stormwater permit. It's called a stormwater permit, but it really is a set of robust regulations that oblige us to protect the stormwater stream that's going into the marine sanctuary and into our streams. we're currently doing fine, but there's gonna be an uptick in the requirements to divert and prevent trash from entering streams and ultimately ending up in the marine sanctuary. And we'll be looking forward to discussing with the council as well as the public ways in which we can comply with that trash amendment, which is the additional measures to reduce the amount of trash going into water sources. In some cities, that's a staggering cost to deal with that issue of trash. We're fortunate in that, frankly, most of the trash entering our waterway happens from Stone Creek Village. We can identify the points at which trash is entering the waterway and streaming on into the marine sanctuary, and we look forward to working with resident groups, potentially for some volunteer programs that might help us at a very low cost prevent that trash from entering the stream. I attended an annual United Way breakfast with volunteers from throughout the county. We're recognized for their tremendous efforts. I met with the proponents of FORTAG for the Fort Ord Recreational Trail and Greenway and TAMSI to discuss how the trail might go through or around the Frog Pond. And there were some good ideas from Regional Parks District Manager Rafael Payan, Dr. Payan, about how that might go, and those ideas are going to be included in the environmental document that will be published in November. Officer Chris Moore started last week as a full-time reserve officer joining our police department, and we're excited to have him on board. Monterey Bay Economic Partnership's annual State of the Region is this Friday, and I'll be attending that as well as the mayor. And finally, staff completed a significant amount of work to prepare the city's annual financial audit. Kim and Karen were absorbed for several weeks in pulling together material and information for that financial audit. We continue to make good progress on improving our financial systems and ensuring that all of those audits are online, complete transparency with the public on how we're handling our money and our long-term obligations. We anticipate the final audit report to be published for the November council meeting.
Thank you. So we'll move on to mayor and council reports. I'd like to start with Dennis.
Just to remind people, I'm still your trash man. I wanted to start out by saying that just remind everybody, we are a city manager form of government here, and we are blessed to have Dino Pick as our city manager. He's doing an extraordinary job. You just heard that report. He is the kind of person who just stands on top of things and makes sure things get done. He does it in a very professional, very kind way, too, in my head. I wanted to give you a brief update. First of all, the Monterey Regional Waste Management District is a JPA. It's a special district that was formed many years ago. A little bit of history on the Waste Management District. Trash used to be dumped into the bay. I don't know if there's anybody here that remembers that, but the trash used to be dumped into the bay, and then it was burned for a while, I think down in the Sand City area. And finally, we established a landfill out in the marina, and we have an extraordinary landfill. We have over 100 years of capacity that is permitted by the state of California. Very few cities, entities, counties, any place around California. I think we may have the longest permitted landfill in the state of California right now. So and I want to also comment that organization's been blessed by Harry Bales, who is from Pacific Grove. I think he was the city manager at one point in time. The man is 90 years old now. 40 years he's been on that board. He came on the board in 1969. The Waste Management District, Delray Oaks is a member. Monterey, City of Seaside, Sand City, Pacific Grove, Pebble Beach Corporation, or the Pebble Beach Community Services District, Carmel, Monterey County, and the City of Marina. Those are the members of the Waste Management District. And it's the board's responsibility to oversee what that team, excellent management team out there that Tim Flanagan has built after William Mary retired. So, what's going on out there that affects you? Rates. Your trash hauling rates, your curbside recycling and trash and green waste. As you may know, Green Waste Recovery was the contractor that won a multi-year contract. They have not done their job of giving us information that we need so that we can negotiate new rates for them. And that's at their expense, because we're keeping our old rates, and they haven't been able to increase the rates because they haven't given the district the information that was required by the contract. So this will be going on for some time. There's no real, we don't know when it's going to get resolved. Dino is a member of the technical advisory group, our committee out there at the Waste Management District. They will get the information, and then when we get that information, we'll have to renegotiate rate increases. There will be increases, we can be rest assured of that. Fuel costs go up, cost of labor goes up, so we can count that our trash rates will go up too, our pickup rates. It's still not very bad. When we looked at these rates, we're somewhere right about in the middle of rates around the comparable counties around us. So I don't think we're doing too bad. The district recently passed we passed their budget for this current fiscal year, which began on July 1st. The budget was not approved, so we had an interim budget, temporary budget, until labor negotiations were completed. And now we have 2, 3, and up to 5-year labor agreements with the 4 bargaining units. I think there are 4 bargaining units. And those were all reasonably negotiated. People were pretty reasonable about it. The bargaining units asked for things that we did not necessarily agree on, but we reached compromise. And the impact was such that we did not have to change the budget. We had allowed for certain assumptions in the budget that we originally designed. And as it came in, all of those bargaining unit agreements were within our budget. So the upshot of all of this is that the next topic that I want to talk about, I want to jump into a different one here, is recycling. When the material recovery facility was extensively remodeled a couple of years ago, and I don't know if anybody in here got a chance to go out for the grand opening, but it was spectacular. You get the world's largest Rube Goldberg kind of contraption out there. Conveyor belts moving at tremendous speeds, material running around through it, being sorted by magnetic and other means. It's an amazing operation. We invested heavily in that. We had to issue a bond to pay for the $30 million effort. We authorized another bond issue to pay for capital improvements. There are significant capital improvements that had to be done to the landfill. Many things were postponed for years and decades, and now we're addressing those things to prepare us so that we can take our landfill into the future. The state mandates many, many requirements on us. We have to comply with those requirements. There are state laws, state regulations. This requires significant capital expenditure. Things like greenhouse gas emissions. There's a tremendous amount of methane that's produced by the landfill. That methane is converted into compressed natural gas and used to run engines that produce electricity used by Waste Management District and also by the, well, it had been used by our neighbor, the Monterey One Water, but due to some bureaucratic snafus with Pacific Gas and Electric, we're not able to just pipe electricity over the fence to the neighbor. So we're working to overcome some of those things. And if a desal plant were ever to be built, we would be providing electricity to the desal plant by using our methane and not exposing, allowing it to escape into the atmosphere. The other thing is when we can't use all the methane to produce electricity, it has to be flared off. And there is a flare there at the landfill, so that you know about that. Our air is regulated by the Monterey Regional Air Pollution Control, or whatever the authority. Air Quality Authority. I think in the time that I've been on the board, there was one period of time when we did exceed our methane levels, and we were fined for that. We quickly got under control there. That was during the period when we had a catastrophic failure to a generator. So I wanted you to know that the recycling project at the MRF was projected to produce a profit. And if you've followed international news at all and know about what's going on in China, we are no longer able to send much over to China. It has had devastating impact on the commodity prices for recyclable material. And the result of that is it's costing us money to recycle material now. The net is a loss, not a profit. Well, what does that mean to us? There's a couple of things it means to us. It means that we as citizens need to know as much as we can about what we can recycle and what can't be recycled. I don't know how many people know it, but for example, at one point in time, we were throwing all of our film plastics, there's saran wrap and similar kinds of things. The wrappings that go around almost every product that you buy at a grocery store, or maybe in some cases, products you buy at a store, thin plastic wrapping, that cannot be recycled now. It's not, there is no money in it. So that has to go in our landfill. People are still putting that kind of material in their recycle bins. And it's because they don't understand what can go in which bins. There's an app that's available. You can go to the website at the Monterey Regional Waste Management District. It's MontereyRegionalWasteManagement.org, I think, MRWNDA.org. Or you can go to your Apple store and download the WhatsApp, or What Goes Where app, and it'll tell you where to put your various things. Also, I encourage everybody to read the newsletter that comes out once a month from Green Waste Recovery. Read that as a once a month or quarterly. So make sure you read that. That has information in there about what goes where. And I think that is it. Oh, and I'd like to hear from you folks. You can get my email address from Kim, but it's, I'd like you to use the DAlliancCMA@sbcglobal.net. You can send me your concerns if you're not happy with what Green Waste Recovery has done to you. I've been personally very pleased with their service. I can always count on them about 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning picking up my trash and my recyclables, and then about 1 o'clock they come by and pick up my garbage. So I know that they're there every Monday. At any rate, please contact me. I'd like to know if you think the service is good. I'd like to know if you think the service is bad. And we'll try and do something about it if it's bad. Thank you. That's my report. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mr. Capriati?
Monterey One Board and Recycled Water Committee report attended the ribbon cutting of the Pure Water Monterey Advanced Water Purification Facility. I think the highlight of it was one, seeing the infrastructure, but two was the root beer floats made from recycled water. First water is still anticipated mid Q4, November 22nd. Right now, we are the organization is putting additional hours and budgets devoted to making that commercial operations date. One of the other things that Monterey One does is wastewater processing, and I do have to report that we had a small wastewater overflow occur in Pacific Grove on Thursday night, which responded to immediately, and it was stopped within minutes. The total outflow was about 5,600 gallons, which sounds like a lot, but is easily managed. Most of it was released into the street and cleaned up. It came from a manhole cover right upstream from the 9th Street pump house, which is where the pump house, the old pump house, is where the old or the more devastating outflow we had a few years back. Cal OES, County Health Services, State Water Resources Board have all been notified. The county is monitoring the beaches and they are taking regular water samples. If any of you have any questions, you can contact Mike McCullough at Government Affairs. I have his phone number. I'll put it here for the record, 831-645-4618. You guys can get it from the tape. Seaside Water Basin, the Water Master, we approved several recurring contracts for monitoring and analysis services. The primary function of the Water Master is to monitor the current state of the basin and to ensure that current procedures, current producers, those are people who take water out of the basin, are compliant with the terms of the 2006 adjudication and to provide expertise for changes in production, to promote water projects that replenish the overdraft and to return it to the usable stored groundwater pre-1988 level. That's an adjudicated level. And there are a suite of consultants that collect the data and generate our compliance documents. I was honored to be appointed to the Technical Advisory Committee. This committee, as the name suggests, is very technical, and it provides great insight into the connected water balance of the region. FORA continues to wind down. The two main business items were the transition plan update and the blight removal, which the city manager is very much involved in, and I thought he would report on that. And that's it.
Ms. Getson. Good evening. Unfortunately, I was not able to make the last meeting in September. During this period, I attended the United Veterans Council meeting and the Fort Ord Area Retired Soldiers Council meetings. There will be a gala to support the Veterans Transition Center on 11 November. I have not seen the details, but if you go to the Veterans Transition Center website, they should now have a link with details and how it works. The county's Veteran of the Year dinner, which honors 12 or 13 veterans for their work volunteering various agencies throughout the county, will be on the evening of 8 November at Black Horse Bayonet Golf Course. The dinner starts at 18:45. Tickets are $35 and available through the County Military and Veterans Affairs Office at the Unbelievable Road Courthouse. This year, they're also awarding, in addition to the veteran volunteers, they're awarding a new award called the Sam Farr Award, and it is being awarded to two awardees, I don't know who they are, non-veterans, businesses or persons, include spouses, who have done outstanding jobs supporting the veterans community in Monmouth County. I attended the Northern Salinas Valley Mosquito Abatement District meeting. They have, we approved a new lease with the city of Salinas/Salinas Airport for the current building through December 2021. And we are moving forward with the purchase, design, and eventually hopefully construction of the building on Blanco Road, be a permanent home for the Mosquito Abatement District. The district funded OPEB and retirement cars program. We have the same programs here, which is the savings account dedicated to 4 training sessions on excellent governance. Next session will be in November, and the final session will be in January. I attended an AMBAG meeting, which we didn't do much except approve and evaluate the executive officer. It was a short meeting, kind of nice. And that's all I have.
Ms. Linscott?
Thank you. I attended the Community Human Services Board meeting where the draft report on the audit was presented. The results were very positive. No material weaknesses were identified, and there was no fraud identified. Because of the positive results, no management letter was necessary. There was also a presentation on the substance use prevention program. This is a school-based counseling program for students. This program aims to provide emotional support to students and to address and identify substance use and abuse issues. The presenters are well-qualified counselors in this program, was well-delivered and very informative. I attended the Community Human Services 50th Anniversary Gala Saturday night. It was held at the Marriott Hotel in the Ferranti Bay Room, which is the top floor of the Marriott, and the view is spectacular. It was a silent auction as well as a live auction. Food was delicious, music great. It was the Money Tree Band, and it was well attended and fun evening for all. Seaside Sanitation, our October meeting was canceled. I attended the Del Rio Citizens Action Group meeting where results of the picnic were presented and preliminary discussion on Center's workshop. There was also a discussion regarding the CAG beautification project on the Zebra Triangle. I attended a town hall meeting with Congressman Panetta, where Monterey Bay Community Power board members discussed its programs with residents from Delray Oaks and Seaside. And I attended the Monterey One water ribbon cutting ceremony, and I'm with John. Root beer floats outstanding. It's been many years since I had one. What Pure Water Monterey has accomplished is so impressive. They've taken a major step forward in solving our water shortage issues. And I wanted to mention this. This is just on my own kind of thing. I think it's wonderful that we recognize our residents for things that they do, volunteer programs that they're involved in. But I feel it should be done through the city council and the city. I could, like weed my yard and trim my trees and beautify my front yard. And that's something that I can maybe get my friends to come and give me an award for doing that. But that's responsible as a homeowner and resident of Delray Oaks that I need to do. I think that anytime there is a presentation for a resident, it should come before the city council to be approved prior to that. And all of this should be worked through the city if the resident is doing good work for the city and not just handled by a few residents. And I'm sure that the lady tonight would justify in receiving her commendations, and she was served on the city planning commission and all. But I think in the future, this all needs to be processed through the city, since she was doing good for the city, and I think it's much nicer. I would prefer an award recognition from the city for things I have done for the city, rather than just a group of residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So my report starts on September 25th at the TAMC board meeting. We reviewed a revised five-year integrated funding plan to identify available sources of funding and schedule deliveries for priority projects. Some of those include the Route 68 safety and traffic flow, Blackie Road extension, Castroville Boulevard interchange, 101 safety improvements in South County, Pullman Highway 68 project, Highway 1 rapid bus corridor, Imgen multimodal corridor, FORTAG, safe routes to school, senior disabled transportation, and the Salinas Rail extension. We're talking approximately $270 million over 5 years, so you wonder why things take time. We also codified the amended annual maintenance of effort requirement for receiving Measure X funds. Essentially, that's an amount that each jurisdiction needs to hit each year in order to qualify for additional funding the following year. September 27th, I received a FORTAG update with organizers Dr. Fred Watson and Scott Waltz on the different conversations and options that they have been looking at. Our city manager mentioned it about the frog pond loops and listening to residents. On the 28th at 10 a.m., we had the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Arts and Culture meeting. If you are an artist, they're creating a Delray Oaks registry and hosting the first annual DRO Artist Showcase and Holiday Sale. I believe we're up to about 25 local artists within the city, including a marble carver, mask maker, woodworker, jeweler, ceramicist, award-winning jam maker, a cellist, an a cappella four-part barbershop group, nature photographer, and several painters. So if you are an artist, please let us know and we'll get you registered. After that meeting, I went to help with the blessing bag filling, but Sustainable Delray Oaks team had already had them done. Monday, September 30th, I also attended a base redevelopment conference hosted by FORA and the Association of Defense Communities at the Monterey Conference Center. As our city manager mentioned, it was very auspicious timing. I was there when he shared his story and all the ears perked up in the room about our property. After that, the same day, I went to a Land Watch Community Forum on groundwater sustainability. Gary Peterson from the Salinas Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency spoke about the complexities of water and truly the need to change the way we've been doing things for a long time. And then in addition, I attended the Laguna Grande Park meeting that included the City of Monterey, City of Seaside, and the Monterey Regional Parks District to see what they're going to be doing about Laguna Grande, and I'm being asked to just come and observe because whatever they do at the park may affect us as well. October 1st, I held the second Delray Oaks business meeting at the Moose Lodge, learned about the history of the lodge, and chatted about parking issues off of Delray Gardens as a result of the increase of employees in our light industrial area. Friday, October 4th, I too attended the special invite-only pure water Monterey ribbon cutting. The recycled water technology is innovative with its use of wastewater, stormwater, food industry processing water, and impaired surface water that, when treated, will recharge the groundwater basin. It will provide the peninsula the first new water source in decades. It will provide 3,500 acre-feet a year out of the total 10,000 that we need to help us meet the 22-year CalAm cease and desist order timeline to stop overpumping of the Carmel River. It was unfortunately scheduled at the exact same time as the monthly mayor's meeting, so I was unable to attend that meeting in the city. October 5th, I had the monthly What's on Your Mind in the park. We discussed frog pond maintenance, FORTAG, and the airport road. And directly afterwards, I attended the annual Seaside Fire Open House. They have an impressive display showing how quickly fire starts side by side with one space that had a sprinkler and one place that didn't. I'd say get your sprinklers. Excuse me, a huge shout out to our firefighters. October 9th, I attended the DRO Planning Commission for the discussion about the process needed for projects on city land that you'll be hearing more about. October 10th, we took the blessing bags to Safe Place, a teen homeless program that is part of Community Human Services. Sustainable Delray Oaks made 100 recycled t-shirt bags, filled them with personal hygiene items for youth. We also brought in bagels and fruit as a thank you to the staff and any visitors that were there that morning. As you heard, our CHS board member Pat Lintel was also there to help receive all the bags. It was a really nice event, and thank you to Susan and Simeon for coordinating this generous and very compassionate program. October 11th, I met with our city manager and board members of the Monterey chapter of the California Native Plant Society to discuss an area of mitigated property they oversee in our forward property. October 12th, I participated in the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So many of us have been affected by the disease affecting our loved one. This was the first time elected officials attended, and we had a great show of support from Peninsula mayors, including Monterey Mayor Wilberson, San City Mayor Carbone, Pacific Grove Mayor Peak, and Mayor Pro Tem Yanelia Greenfield. October 14th, I was able to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day with Mayor Carbone in San City. I learned how to make flatbread, create string for cording from branches, and shared a wonderful meal in the San City Hall with Mayor Carbone, Tom Little Bear Nason of the Esalen Nation, as well as a large group of friends and family. Just on Monday, I participated in a press conference with many of the 28 local electeds who signed a letter to the Coastal Commission asking them not to approve the Cameron desal plant permit. I signed it because Delray Oaks had the highest percentage of support for Measure J, and we can meet our needs with the expansion of pure water monitoring. The next several weeks are going to be very important in the water realm as we anticipate the draft EIR for the pure water monitoring expansion, the unveiling of the Measure J's feasibility report, and the Coastal Commission meeting on the 14th, so stay aware. And that's all for my report. All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda. There's a couple of items that need to be pulled. C1, updated boards and committees list. It was added a little prematurely. We're going to be tabling this until the January meeting when we do it annually. And number 2, we're going to be pulling the correction to resolution 2019 to 22 for some additional administrative work on that. Are there any other items that are wished to be pulled by the council? Any items wished to be pulled by the public? All right, so I move to approve the consent agenda. Okay. The items tabled as all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. We have no old business. Number 9, we have new business. The first one is the community volunteer programs and city facilities fees. Would you like to take that over?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The item before you tonight is an action item requesting that council direct staff to develop a policy for the community volunteer groups that defines a few things that we haven't had defined up to this point. And those include what is a group that benefits the city, what are the benefits that will accrue to groups such defined, and what is a public benefit project. This ties into a discussion that we've been having ongoing in between the mayor and myself. As all of you know, the city's historically had an active community group, Citizens Action Group, which has been doing good for the city for decades. They have been recognized by the city council and afforded certain privileges, primarily the use of public facilities without paying facility fees, the right to publish in the Acorn newsletter, and the right to host their events in the city kiosks. They put on various events throughout the year: citywide picnic, ice cream social, Santa's workshop, annual garage sale, and they also have been very active in beautifying our public spaces for the last couple of years since I got here. It's been fantastic work. That has been one group that we've been working with as staff since I got here. In the last 10 months or so, we've had a significant proliferation in the number and type of groups that are trying to do good for the community, which is all good in the sense that the community can use all the help it can get in terms of beautification and so on. But what it's done for the city staff is it's placed us in a little bit of a quandary in a couple of ways. The first of which is, what is our interface with these groups? How should we be interacting with these groups? And the groups primarily have fallen under the rubric of the mayor's advisory committees, which imports the name of the mayor in the title, and as such, certainly to city staff, alludes to some official nature or some attributes that they should have. And it's been unclear to staff about sort of what are those, what rights should they have, and how should they be treated. And so frankly, we're looking for guidance from the council to help us sort all that out. And again, I think what we're looking for tonight is for you to direct us to go back out and look at some best practices, look at some definitions in a policy, and then come back to the council for a discussion, recommendation, potentially a decision on a policy that will help us better interact with all of these groups, manage the impact on staff time, manage city resources, and hopefully, ultimately, allow a lot of great people to do good stuff for the city. So that's the task before you, and staff seeks recommendation. The recommendation is to direct us to go out and define a couple of these topics, put them in a policy, come back with a recommendation to you. Under a second agenda item tonight, you'll be considering an amendment to the master fee schedule to make the fee for conditional use permit for public benefit projects zero. And that's a result of the planning commission discussion that we had, where basically the planning commissioners heard a similar discussion as to what I just laid out. And our request to them was for us to be able to bring these public benefit projects to them when they impact the public space and relate to design, review, whether it be artistic elements or permanent elements that folks want to put on public property. The planning commissioners were terrific about essentially welcoming that review and oversight role, and they unanimously, I think, wanted the fee to be lower, and so that'll be on the second item. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
So, Mr. Gagliardi, any comments?
I'd actually like to, I'm still trying to get my head around these groups. If anything, I'd like to hear, I know that we have public comment coming up, I'd really like to hear kind of from the public first before I'm still trying to draw conclusions in capturing or gathering information. I don't have enough really to make any decisions about anything right now.
We have a lot of groups. My general consensus, my general feeling is, yes, we need to have a policy. I strongly recommend that we have a policy. I have some concerns. Going back to the state of California has some very, very strict rules concerning gift of public funds. And this public funds physical property, and logically, it would also include time and effort of public staff. So cities, in our case, city staff, city equipment, city property, that really needs to be vetted when we determine whether or not a function or a request by one of our groups is quote to the public benefit, because well, decisions can't be made in a vacuum. One person cannot make a decision, especially when it comes to public funds in the big picture, time, effort, property, and money. And they need to be vetted as to, what results are, and what people are, what results that are wanted for what people at what cost. And as I said, we really need to be very conscious of state law, as well as common sense concerning the use of public property and funds.
Michelle?
Yes, I agree with Louise and all of her comments. I think it's important that we get things behind and get a program established for the council to vote on. And I don't understand why it's the mayor's things rather than city. I guess I don't get that connotation, because when I hear a mayor's group or something, I think it's part of the city, and I don't know that that be the case here. I may be wrong, but I would like that defined why they are mayor's groups and not part of a group that's already established, the Citizens Action Group, established and for years, and has been doing an excellent job in doing things to benefit the residents. Thank you.
I want to go for public comment.
I have a question. Is the Citizens Action Group of 501c3?
Yes, it is.
No.
Established as 501c several years ago.
Okay, so, okay. I was gonna say, listen to how you were mentioning what's the purpose of the mayor's committees. Now, I don't know for sure, because I'm not the mayor, but my sense of the mayor's committees would be that the mayor's looking to get input from the public on things. So maybe, in a sense, helping to formulate ideas and things like that. So although I can't say that because I'm not her, that's my sense of it, is to get greater public interaction and greater input from different members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Shirley, or Baxter Place. I happen to be co-chair of Sustainable Delray Oaks. And so I want to mention too that as citizens, we were never previously invited to participate in government actively in these different ways. And that's why we elected Allison. She gave us the space to do that. And so Sustainable Delray Oaks started out as a mayor's advisory on sustainability, and now we've morphed into Sustainable Delray Oaks, which is under the 501c3 of Monterey County for sustainable communities. So just to give you a little idea about, we have our mission, our vision, we have goals. Our mission is to engage, empower, work collaboratively towards a sustainable, equitable, and resilient future. Our first goal is to collaborate with our city's elected officials, local government agencies, and businesses on the adoption of sustainable practices and policies. And during Dino's report, it popped out at me. He's working on the stormwater permit. He needs to stop the trash from going into the waterways at Stone Creek. We can be there to help. We, as a group, we have zero privileges in the city. We can't go to Old Town Hall because you're gonna charge us. We can't put anything in the kiosk. That's fine. We've made accommodations. We go to Moose Lodge, we post on Nextdoor, we table at events. It's difficult because I am on CAG and I see what they do and they do a great job. But I'm the same citizen that is on CAG, and I'm also a citizen that's on Sustainable Delray Oaks. And I have two different types of privileges, but yet I'm the same person trying to do good for the city. So I'm a little, I'm sure about that. Just to clarify, we want to do the butterfly garden. It's not our land. We're not asking to own that land. We just want to beautify it. So same thing that CAG does. We want to make it a nice place. Going back to our goals, our second goal is to enhance the community's connection with nature and inspiring the public to protect the natural world. Our third goal is to educate and promote actions on local sustainability issues, including land use, energy, transportation, waste, and water, both marine and fresh. And our last one is to foster connections to other local and regional groups and agencies. And we have a website. You can look that up, CSMC, and look at Delray Oaks, and you can see what we've done. You can see, what we plan to do. There's lots of cities around us that are doing single-use plastic ordinance. And I know Dino's expressed that he wants help with that. We are not interested in putting more work on your plate. We're definitely not interested in that. We are happy to go out and go to businesses and find out best practices. I've got 2 mentors that I've got names, I'm gonna contact them and have them help us start to develop something with you. So, we're here to help.
Good evening. My name is Frederica Jones. I live on Hillville Place. So I would just like to have a little bit clarification, and I appreciated Ms. Getzel's comment because it gave me a little bit better insight as far as what the state law requires and vetting and things like that. So my question to Mr. City Manager and council members is, as being a member of CAG, as I am, I'm a contributor and attend as often as I can. How is that different than proposing a program, a volunteer program to the city and trying to organize with other citizens of Delray Oaks to make this a improved or walk beside city council or city hall to make it a unified and where we're embracing each other, including city council members. But then when we attend a CAG meeting and you have the city manager there, we've had the chief of police attend in the past, we've had the prior mayor attend frequently up until last November. City council members have been there. Tonight I heard a report by the city manager about the report from the CAG. I've heard Ms. Lintel about CAG. Everything has been CAG, and granted, it's a city ordained volunteer program, which started out as a volunteer program for the residents of Delray Oaks. And then it got involved where all of a sudden city council is reporting on it, attending it. They were a 501c3, they're not now. They're getting the recognition and use of City Hall for the Oak Tree program. You use city staff to create the vouchers, to log in things, to hand things out. You clearly use City Hall staff for that. But yet, to come along now and say, okay, well, we can't do that, how is that different from CAG versus the next volunteer program? Where is the line drawn as far as what you allow to support CAG, because that's Delray Oaks' chosen volunteer program? where you have Sustainable Delray Oaks, which is recognized on the peninsula as, you know, a city program, and now, well, you can't use the old town hall where you have to be charged. You can't do this, you can't do that. And to me, I'm just gonna lay it out there. It's because it's the mayor's forming of different community members to better Delray Oaks. And by golly, if it's not a city council member that has brought it forward, there's not going to be any recognition or approval or any looked upon for favor. And that's really unfair, and it's really known within the community that what we're trying to do, you can take mayor's title out of it, but it's a group of residents who are just trying to walk beside other neighbors and City Hall and make this a great place to be. It was earlier said that, you know, if you are doing, pulling weeds and trimming your trees and doing everything that you're expected as a homeowner, you shouldn't get an award for that. But yet, I've sat here during other meetings and I've heard, oh, well, you know what? This person did an outstanding job. He's an employee for the city, but we're gonna give him an award for doing his job. But yet, when there's other individuals who are volunteering and coming in on Saturday and doing things to help beautify the city, they don't get any recognition because of their volunteers. And I think it should be looked at as far as a pure policy for everybody. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Rice-Silverman. Hi, everybody. When Allison was elected mayor, a lot of us residents went goody, because what we really want is a community, and a community of inclusivity. And the inclusivity, a lot of people in society today are suffering from depression and anxiety, and the number one reason is because they're not included in the community that they live. So Allison has made a space for all of us to be included, and we love it. And we want to make Delray Oaks an awesome place to live. We want to have an art show. We want to have nice parks. We want to have all these things. So I think we need to relook at that and say, is it really for the betterment of Delray Oaks? And I think the answer is yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Douglas McKenzie, and I live on Sausalito here, and I'm fairly new to this wonderful city, so excuse any ignorance on my part. I'd like to address the issue before the council now, which is the recommendation to direct the staff to provide a process to deal with these groups. I was at the Planning Commission. I think it's a great idea. Second of all, I think arguments can be made that regarding gift tax and staff time and so on, that you're treating CAG differentially, and I think that's a problem. I think it's a real problem. Discriminatory on its face, not good. Thank you.
Kevin Raskoff, 4 Baxter Place. I think whatever decisions the council ends up thinking about, whatever recommendations are brought to the council, it's going to be important that those decision points are spread equally across all groups, whether it be CAG or the Sustainable Delray Oaks group, or it's the Neighborhood Watch, or anything that involves anything having to do with city space, or people, or staff time, or Dino's time. If it doesn't, if it's not spread evenly across all those things in an equitable way, then it will turn into, I think, just what the council is sort of under the surface worrying about, which is it's political, right? I think that's just been a long day. I'll just sort of say it as I see it, right? I think there's a lot of concern that a lot of these things are coming from groups of the population of Del Rey Oaks that had a particular political persuasion when they voted in the last election, and I think that there are some animosity because of that. That's how I see it. If the process that comes out of this, which I think is sorely needed, is not equitably spread across all the groups that are utilizing any staff, the argument will then be very easy to make that it is all being political, right? It is a few numbers of people that are deciding what is worthy for our population as opposed to something that is truly equitable across the population. So, thank you very much.
My name is Debbie Blakesley. I live on Vogue. I'm currently the chair of the Parks and Youth Committee. We're kind of getting off to a slow start. I was kind of out of pocket for about a month. But when I first met with Dino, some of the questions, or one of the first questions you asked was, how do we interact with the groups? You all are a very, very busy group of people, and we don't want to take any more of your time. I mean, volunteering to me is about bettering our community. And when we had, I met with Dino and then met with Ron when he was out working on the ball field, I asked him what kind of things do you need help with? Because, he's one guy. And, spreading the chips that Saturday was part of, taking care of the park. And if there's other things that we can do, he has made this park just shine. But I was just walking my dog yesterday and I ran into someone. I said, I just came from the park. He said, where's the park? And I tried to tell her, I said, where City Hall is. She was visiting, but, she had a child with her. And I said, there's everything there. There's volleyball courts, there's a baseball field. And we don't know how many of our citizens are using it, but we'd like to find out. I was down there Saturday, I saw a barbecue, and if we have facilities, we should use them. And that's part of what my group's gonna try to find out is, how many people are using it, how many citizens are using it, how many people outside of Del Rey Oaks. Do we have people outside using the barbecue pits? I'm not sure. And I don't want to use city staff to find that out, but maybe, a group of us could sit down there on a weekend and just take a survey and ask, where the people are from. I know you need, as far as this, should they have the same right as CAG? I have nothing against CAG. I know they have done wonderful work, and it's the garage sale and the ice cream social. But there's nothing wrong with having new groups and specific interests for the citizens. We need to expand, and part of volunteer groups is finding people with common interests, whether it be arts and culture, whether it be getting more youth to use the park, whether it be Sustainable Del Rey Oaks, who've done a great job and just kind of like flowing off on their own. They don't need any of you guys' stuff. They're just taking off. It's a good way to meet people and collaborate and use your thinking skills and problem solving skills. Volunteer programs are great for that. Not all of us are outgoing social beasts, and sometimes you can bring those shy people into a volunteer group. You meet new people, especially when you're new to an area. And you find out, you come into City Hall, you see something posted, well, no, I'm interested in the quilting bee, or I know policy definitions, the benefit to the city, I think when you have happy citizens, that is the benefit to the city. And if you can find something that people get involved with and are willing to give, that's what volunteer means, to give freely, give of their time. Everyone's busy, everyone has busy schedules. But when you give that time up, it makes you feel good. CAG everybody on that committee should know of all people, the time they've put in. That makes them feel good. They've done a great job. There's nothing wrong with expanding. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Dennis Hollian again. Everybody loves volunteers, or should love volunteers. But I think some of the things that the council might want to consider when looking into this question, and it's great that maybe the direction for staff is to go out and do some more research on it, but it seems to me there's a couple of things that come to mind as a public entity. You need to have minutes of meetings. You need to have those reports come out so that people know what you're doing. If the city decides as a council that this is something that it's going to endorse, to what extent is it going to be endorsed? To the best of my knowledge, we don't give the Citizens Action Group any money. It's not a part of the budget. Is that correct?
They had given money.
Yeah, but the Citizens Action Group is actually giving the city money in the past. So it's been I don't know, maybe at best it's a revenue neutral or expenditure neutral entity. So that's one of the other considerations. So when you're passing a city budget, you have to decide, are we going to fund Parks and Recreation Group, the Sustainable Delray Oaks? There needs to be a vote on something like that. So budgetary considerations are important. Do these different groups have bylaws? Are they registered 501c3s with the state? Any group can do that. They don't need to be necessarily a part of the city. You can apply for 501c3 status at the state. You also have to apply to the Attorney General and be part on their list of registered nonprofits. Those require annual renewals too, or semi-annual renewals, depending on the nature. And it's a shame the Citizens Action Group didn't file their tax returns and probably file those reports with the Attorney General of the state of California. But anyway, these organizations need to understand what the rules are in the state of California, and if they're going to be a burden on the city, we as citizens need to understand what that burden is and say, is that where we want city staff devoting their time? If we continue on the road that we are towards financial stability, maybe in the future you can consider establishing a position that would support those groups. But right now, I don't, from my past experience on the council, I don't know that you're going to have that kind of money and resources for a long time to come. So, thank you. Those are my thoughts.
Carol Kaplan, Alta Circle. I've lived here for 43 years. Has anyone else in this room been here longer? Good, you and me. But I speak from a long experience. I loved it when I moved here because I moved from Los Angeles, where it was impossible to know what was going on. And one of the things I told my friends in Los Angeles was, everybody gets along in this little community. We all participate. We can come before the city council. We get along. And I would just urge all of you, in all of us, in the midst of these difficult times, that we're a community. I think we have much more in common than we disagree about. And I think all of us are here just because we want to help keep our city good. I'm only a part of the Sustainable Delray Oaks group, but I know our group isn't asking for any help. We're not asking for any money. We just want to help make our city better. I think KEG is doing a wonderful job, and I admire everything they've done, but they can't do everything. And I do agree that we need some sort of a policy. So I think all of that is good for discussion. But most of all, that we just come together in a better spirit of community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Renee. I live on Carlson Drive. I have just returned to this community. I've been back and forth for many years, but I have grown up here in Delray Oaks since 1972. So I say that I've lived in Del Reyes for my life. Now, I've been away for many years, for 22 years, living in other communities, and I am really excited to be back. This has been my dream, to come back to the Monterey Peninsula, to come back to Del Reyes, where I grew up, and get involved and be a part of this community. Concerns me a little bit, but there's questions, sustainable on the Monterey Peninsula. California, I'm out of state for a long time. California is so forward-thinking to so much of the rest of the U.S. Midwest thinking. I was bringing ideas back with me on many visits, bringing things into Midwestern communities. You know, hey, let's reduce plastics. Brought the ideas of carrying our own grocery bags. These kinds of things that we project here in California for the rest of the world to see. I'd like to see us all getting along as a council and as citizens. You know, my family's been here for a very, very long time. My mom's been a part of this council for years, longer and more, I'm able to do so. And I'm very excited to have my foot in here with this community. And, I'd like to see us grow with some new ideas, because this really is a very special place. Thanks.
Gary Creed, Frequent, y'all. Not a lot to add other than just my perspective as a member of the Planning Commission, member of CAG. I've been involved with several of the new groups as well, and I would just to say that there's just a lot of people out there that want to do good for the city. They're happy to live here, they're proud to live here, and they're excited for the chance to be invited in and get involved. Policies, guidelines are always a good thing. Like city manager, I'm an old military guy, and that's what gets along. I mean, I like rules, I understand it, that's good. I would encourage you, when you're looking at this, like in our planning commission discussion, strong emphasis on no fees. We should not be standing in the way of any of these groups. I love CAG, I'm really enjoying my time there. It's not a one size fits all. People have other interests, and we shouldn't expect one entity to do everything. If other people have other interests, we should make it possible and get out of the way. Don't put up impediments, roadblocks. It's not necessary, right? But obviously encourage you, let's come up with something that's streamlined, something that's easy to navigate, make it clear what the new group's responsibility is. The name, who cares about the name? I don't think the name's a big deal. It had to be called something to get started. I don't think there's anything about the name. Okay? What's important is what people want to do. They want to show up and they want to pitch in, make your city a better place. For the life of me, can't imagine anybody willing to get in the way of that. So let's figure this out. It's not rocket science. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Connor Richardson. I live on Villa Verde, and at present I am the chair of the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Arts and Culture. Now, yes, I do agree there are a lot of rules that we will have to adapt to, and certainly there are certain things that we'll have to cooperate with the city of Del Reyes in order to accomplish. But in order to try and assuage some fears, I can assure you, as the chair of this committee, there's no dark political objective. We're not doing this to try and gum up the works. We're not trying to extend any person's particular influence. We're all there because we believe that art is one of the things that knits communities together. And we believe that by being able to promote this in an organized and very concerted way, this will not only be a net benefit to the artists, perhaps getting somewhere down the road commissions from people who might not have heard of them otherwise, but it would also give the community opportunities to come together in appreciation for what their fellow residents can create. So definitely, we will need to adapt, but in the case of the name, we can change a name easily. But at the same time, I also hope that when we're creating these rules and these procedures, that it's not done with the intention of quashing what is ultimately what is just a bunch of residents of the city coming together simply because they love this town and what they want to do is see it go to new heights. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? All right, close public comment, come back to the council. Mr. Gagliardi?
So I think all of that was very helpful. So I thank you all for standing up here and kind of helping inform me on that. I think all of you spoke very, very well, but there were a couple of speakers that I think really resonated with you. I think Kevin's comments and Dennis's comments really resonated. I absolutely believe, one, I'm very, very concerned about that political angle, and I'm really glad to hear that everyone's kind of, okay, let's remove the name to remove any question that these are political organizations or meant to be pushing any kind of, any one person, the mayor or something like that. That I think is going to be very, very important. Two, these are not go, no, I don't see any decision that comes out of here as a go, no go. I don't think that that's what's in question. We're not saying, at least I personally don't feel as though any decision I'll be making would be saying you can or cannot be a volunteer group, nor am I saying you can or cannot be a volunteer group that's recognized by the city. I think that is actually an important point. The rules and the policies, I think, they're critical to this. I think the CAG does have some rules. I honestly don't know what they all are, but I think that another thing Kevin said that really resonated is standardization, or I would say being strictly consistent across all of them. The one concern I have, and this is actually a pretty big concern that I have about the waiving of the fees, is that when you begin to mix public benefit with waiving the fees, that exposes the city to any other public group that wants to come in and argue that point that they're providing a public benefit and utilizing city lands like a right-of-way, which would be a city land, and the airport district would be a public agency. And if they make an argument above us that there's an emergency, some sort of emergency services public benefit, they could then make the argument that they need to waive all the conditional use fees. And that is actually a key point that we're using with the airport. This can be a lever to get to work its way in here. And I speak from experience because I'm coming from a developer, and these are exactly the kind of things that I used to look for. The other thing that I see here is waiving the fees and basically just kind of comping the staff time. I mean, of the resources, the critical resources that we have in the city, probably the most scarcest is our time and our revenues, and it's our staff time. We have some very big projects coming up. We are a very, very small staff, and these fees pay for that staff time. These are not surpluses. These are not revenue generators. These actually pay for the staff's time. And so for that, I mean, that reason alone, I can't see, I can't justify just waiving the fees. Permits, variances, notices, scheduling, resources, these are all binding obligations. And they are managed at a ministerial level through the city manager, and at the discretionary level, the council and the planning commission. I think that governance needs to remain in place. I mean, it's there in place for very important reasons. And to just usurp them is, I don't think, well, it kind of flies in the face of the strict consistency limits. What else? I am curious, Dennis raised, you know, are these organizations all gonna have bylaws? Are they all going to have minutes? Are they gonna report out? You know, they sound as though they're boards and commissions, not kind of temporary advisory groups. Other cities have these. Carmel's got a number of these for their beach and everything else. In fact, they just had 44 applicants show up for, you know, for their commissioning. I think other cities manage the desire of the citizens and the residents to get involved through, you know, these formalized boards and committees. I don't think that we have to be any different, and I don't think that it would temper the enthusiasm. But there does have to be, I mean, these processes are in place, and there, again, I mean, my example is that if we make special accommodations for one and not the other, which is what Kevin's point was, then we expose ourselves to basically abuse. And so for that, I don't think that we should be waiting. If you bring a use permit, it has to come with an environmental document of some form, and it has to be processed through our admin, through our staff, and that costs money.
I just want to add, that John brought up a very good point about not that, trying to be fair across the board and people potentially using that as a loophole to get around the tenants who doesn't want them to do. Not sure if it's appropriate, but I would prefer that we wait on a decision on the fees until we have a policy in place. Thank you.
As was brought up, that a happy city is what we're striving for. And I had a coffee with the mayor a few weeks ago. And when she sat down, I was there a little early, and she sat down, the first thing she asked me was, what do you think we need to do? What, I don't know exactly how you phrased it, but what would be best for the city of Delray Oaks? And my answer spontaneously was unification. We're a divided city right now, and that's not healthy for us. And I just think we need to unify and to get this all resolved. And I think that would be a major step forward to the unification. One thing I wanted to point out was that CAG has been around for a number of years, and up until a few months ago, I should say, we haven't seen any new members coming and volunteering to do things. We do now have some are helping with Pony Express, and we needed people for Pony Express because some people were, Pony Express is the delivery of all of the flyers for the various projects that the CAG does. And some people, fortunately, were volunteering to do 2 routes because it's all divided into equal, so nobody's overburdened with this. And so we do have helpers with that now. And where were all these people 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Why weren't they coming and helping do the things for the city? I have a question about that. Why?
I can answer it if you like. That perhaps was a rhetorical question.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And because CAG has always welcomed new members. I've been on it for 6 years, I believe, and there was always a great enthusiasm if we have new members coming out. And I just don't see, like it was pointed out, like if you're new to a community and you want to meet people, or if maybe you're just recently hired and have time to meet people or time to do volunteer work. The larger, if all of these groups came together into one group, it gives you a better opportunity
of the residents of the city of Delray Oaks and just improve the quality of life and happiness within the city. Thank you.
All right, I have some comments. Firstly, I just want to be clear, advisory committees are set up by individuals to provide information to that individual. Information, feedback, advice. I was very clear, I wanted more citizen and civic participation in the city. So one of my first actions was to speak with our city manager and our lawyer about setting up advisory committees. Any city council person can set up advisory committees. I work, my day job, I work around researchers. Research is messy at the beginning. At the beginning of anything, right? There's chaos. How does it work? Who does it work for? All of this kind of stuff. I'm very comfortable in that. So when I spoke with the gentleman, it was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I made very public announcements about asking people to be a part of these groups. And I am thrilled by how many residents are coming forward. You know, the increase in CAG, I feel, is directly because of other people getting involved in other groups. I'm also very comfortable with minimal boundaries, right? We have lots of different groups. We have a 501c3 that's brand new. We have an organization that has been doing amazing work for 25 years for the city that's not currently a 501c3. And now we have these advisory committees that are in their own different kind of status. I am not convinced that one size fits all. I'm not convinced that one size should fit all. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that we have a resolution between the city and the Citizens Action Committee that provides benefits. And perhaps that is something we should look at if we're opening ourselves up for legal issues. Maybe we should look at that as well. Make sure that that's clean. The other thing is, someone else mentioned about asking for money for donations. That was another thing that city manager and the lawyer and I are looking at. I want a new donation policy. Funds were given out in a non-structured way, which I'm very uncomfortable with. So that's going to be the next step. I personally see this as an evolution. We started something, we're bumping up against some walls. We need to figure out how to get that into a position where I'm not convinced everyone's always going to be happy, but get us to a place where it is fair, it is applied equally, and we make it so all of these groups and all of the people that want to participate can succeed, right? It's not a competition. The more diverse groups of people, types of people, efforts, the better. You know, our small city is, we don't have a Parks and Rec, right? We don't have a youth committee. We don't have those things. So as an advisory committee, they are set up not to be long-term. They don't know what's going to come out of these advisory committees, right? Sustainable Delray Oaks launched quickly, and they've been amazingly successful. The Parks and Youth, we've had a little, stumbles getting going. Arts and culture, you've seen the result. The story was a result of one of the projects. The coming together of artists is a beautiful thing to celebrate in our community. So I want us, as we come together and as we figure out and as we ask our city manager what to do and best practices, I want to keep that nature of exploration, fairness, but also the need for diversity. think that's what makes us stronger. So, that's all I got. Any other comments from the council? Yes, please.
So, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to comment. Thank you for all of that. Thank you for all of that guidance. I have 2 pages of notes, and I appreciate it very, very much. Staff will take this on. We'll take a hard look at Carmel, some other practices, definitions, and as with other issues such as short-term rentals or whatever it is that we've taken on here in Delray Oaks, we'll make it unique for our city and our community with all those comments taken into account. I want to personally just say to the council and the community, I have felt extraordinarily uncomfortable over the last number of months because I have felt like I was making decisions that either an elected or an appointed body needed to validate, and I could feel the tension in the community between CAG and between some mayor's advisory committees and so on, and that's the last thing that as your city manager that I want. We can use all the help we can get. We need it. We need it to be transparent. We need processes to be fair. And I think you've loaded me up tonight with some wonderful, wonderful thoughts and advice that we'll take to the government.
Do you need a vote? Do you need something?
I make a motion that we direct the city manager to draft a policy concerning community volunteer programs and city facilities.
Those are 2 separate.
No, it's one section, it's one item.
9A. Any seconds?
I second.
Okay. Are you okay?
Yes, no, I understood, yes.
Okay. Can you vote all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's unanimously approved. So number B?
So,
Number B?
Madam Mayor, if it pleases the council, the next item followed on the discussion with the planning commission, which was fabulous, and therefore our intent tonight was to bring to you a amendment to the master fee schedule that creates a category titled Public Benefits Project and has a fee of 0. It's not a fee waiver; it's a fee category that we will need to define. So if it's the council's pleasure to approve the amended fee schedule tonight, that would be fine. If it's the council's pleasure to wait until we come back with a policy, as has been mentioned tonight, from a staff perspective, I can go either way. We can bring them back together.
Mr. Van Gunn?
Yeah, I'm going to just make this quick. I'm kind of in favor with Ms. Gibson's, I want to say with Louise's recommendation is that we hold off on this and until we're better informed of the policy that comes out. I'd like a better understanding of that. And you know, in that, I mean, if we can kind of even amend or build on that, is that in that review, find out what they're also doing.
Ms. Gensel?
I second that one.
All right.
We're still in
We're just in
conversation.
discussion, yeah. Right?
Yeah, I agree that we need to table it, and I also, as John brought up, we need to be very careful that it does not provide a loophole that we don't want to use, but unintended consequences. So the attorney obviously needs to, we probably need to better define what public benefit is, and that's part of, the first part is already loaded on, before we decide on fee or fees and comment.
Ms. Lintoff?
Yes, I agree with postponing it until the appropriate time was, has been advised by both Louise and John.
Anything going out for public comment? Seeing no public comment, we'll go gonna close that. Any last? Okay, open for a motion?
I move that we table item 9B until such time that a policy has been refined and this matter moves forward.
A second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you for, walking through that with us. It was, I think it was a very important, and necessary conversation to have. Number 10, we don't have any correspondence. Number 11, again, I want to, say thank you for his patience. We have, Monterey Councilperson, Tyler Williamson, who's going to be sharing with us a little bit about Monterey County Housing Coalition. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, residents of Delray Oaks. Again, my name is Tyler Williamson. I am a council member in the city of Monterey. And I do want to just start off by making sure that it's clear that I'm not here in any way to direct, give guidance, or tell you what to do in the city of Monterey, but to give a little bit of history here. Again, Monterey Peninsula Housing Coalition was a group of individuals that were running for elected office throughout the Monterey Peninsula area that were all interested in housing-related issues, and particularly so around the idea of creating a regional approach to our housing problems. Because one of the things that we recognize is right now, all the cities are working in their own little silos, and what we recognize is that the problems of housing don't end at our borders. It's a regional problem. And so, representing the city of Monterey, what we see is a lot of the jobs in the peninsula are in the city of Monterey, and a lot of the cities around the city of Monterey house the people that are employed. And I imagine that a lot of you probably work in the city of Monterey. So that's a little bit of history. There was 5 of us that started it during the election. Mayor Kerr was the representative for Delray Oaks. And after the election, 4 of us got elected. So 1 person didn't get elected, but they're still committed to working with us on coming up with this regional strategy. So earlier this year, we had a retreat where we came up with 4 objectives. And from those objectives, we decided to move forward with working groups to really define what does that mean as an objective as we bring it forward. So now I will share with you what those 4 objectives are. The first one is a Peninsula employee student housing study. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the farm worker housing study that they did in Salinas, but what we're looking at is something similar to that for the peninsula for our workforce and our student populations. And that can be used to not only gather current data that's available in regards to housing, but also capture new information by surveying the community using qualitative and quantitative data. And this information could really help us push some of the other ideas that we have in regards to the Housing Coalition. Basically, in short, the more information, the more data that we have, the better suited we'll be to be able to make data-driven decisions. The second one is looking at the possibility of forming a Joint Powers Authority, a JPA. For those that aren't familiar with what that is, a JPA is a public entity that gives up some of its power to the regional body in order for that body to make decisions. And so this could do 2 things. The first is that we could have members that are participating pay dues into it so that we can specifically allocate funding towards affordable housing development. And the second thing is we're coming up on our 6th cycle. The state is coming up on its 6th cycle of housing elements. So one of the things that the state requires is each municipality to have a housing element. And so particularly so with the new state government, they're starting to hammer down a lot more on what they're expecting and mandating in regards to the municipalities meeting their housing elements. What happens right now is that each city goes out to a consultant to help them with the formation of their housing element, and that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And so one of the things that we propose through the formation of the JPA is it allows us to work together as a region and have one consultant that we go out to and save thousands of dollars in our effort to come up with a housing element space where information can be shared. And then it can be given back to the city to make sure that it's formatted perfectly for the city. Another element of that piece is it allows us to make sure that our housing elements are looking at it from a regional approach as opposed to just saying what works for our city. The third one is looking at how we can allocate any available water supply to affordable housing projects. And this is particularly so between now and when the CDO is lifted. So as I'm sure most of you are familiar, we're in a little bit of a water crisis at the moment, but sometime in the near future, that's going to go away. And so, but what do we do in the meantime? And so one of the things that I've heard over and over again in regards to affordable housing development is, well, where's the water? I attended the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District hosted a meeting 2 months ago, and they agendized an item specifically for how they can manage to allocate affordable water to affordable housing projects. And they had about a half a dozen different ways that they can make it work. And so that's, I'm not sure if you had it in the staff report, and I can speak to more of that if there's questions there, but there's ways that we can do it, is the point. The fourth and final one is leveraging any available state, federal, local dollars. So this really goes back to the idea of us focusing on this as a regional effort. Again, so I'll give you an example. SB2 funding. So this last election cycle, one of the ballot measures was SB2, which was a bond measure to supply funding for affordable housing projects. The city of Monterey has already applied and received funding for SB2 funding. I'm not sure if Del Rey Oaks has, and I don't imagine so either because of how strange you all are as far as the size, but Del Rey Oaks isn't.
Strange.
What was it? What did you think I said?
Strange.
Strange. I'll leave that to you all to decide. I'm not saying that myself. And so this really just offers us an opportunity to say, hey, can we apply for funding together and get a bigger pot of funding regionally? And is there pots of funding, grants that we're missing that we can leverage additional funding? So to summarize this all, two points that I'll make is one, bottom line, we're trying to make this a regional effort. We're trying to find a space where we can work together. And secondly, for you all, the council, this is purely informational, and we didn't want to dive too deep into any one of these objectives without coming to our colleagues first. So I am actually going around to all the council meetings and making myself available for however the representative that's on the coalition chooses to use me, but I'm seen as the leader of the coalition, so I'm here to answer any questions, but really, I'm really looking for some feedback because we need some direction and we want to make sure that it's aligned with what you all feel the direction that we need to go in. So with that, I'll take any questions and any feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, Tyler, look, and Mayor, too. I mean, I really, I think this is a very creative effort. But I mean, I have to just kind of cut right to the chase, and that is that, I mean, since I've been in this role right here, I've read 3 of these housing, these affordable housing elements. There was John Wizard's white paper, which I thought was well written, and really enlightening. And there was Matt Herrera's, the Monterey Business Economic Council's thing, and then our own housing element. Volumes of information, and they all come down to the same thing. We need more units, we need more doors and roofs to put people in. And we want to build ADUs, and we want to build denser housing, and we want to build more houses, but we just don't have the water for it. And here's the crux, is that you guys, I mean, I'm part of this whole Young Turks that was just elected. Young people, we're supposed to be coming in with all these new ideas. But you guys are all voting against the desal plan. You guys just came out and said you're voting against the desal plan. That, to me, smacks such a crash. It's, yeah, we want to solve the housing problem, and we need water to solve the housing problem, but yet we don't really want to solve the water problem. And that, to me, is, I kind of wonder then, where's the sincerity in this? It seems like we're creating another of the third. This would now be a fourth effort that would come up with basically the same thing. Hey, we recognize the problem. These are some really creative ideas, but man, we just don't have the water for it. Bummer. You know, and yet we vote against water infrastructure. So that's kind of my feedback to you. And I've had these conversations with you. I've had these conversations with actually every single one of you guys individually. And it all comes back to the same thing. You know, oh yeah, we're going to be pure Monterey expansion or anything. I also want to bring up this one other point too, Mayor, that you brought in, and this is actually one of the key things that's getting lost in this whole discussion, is that you said in your early report that the Pure Water Monterey, the 3,500 acre feet of the Pure Monterey project is going to recharge the basin. It's not correct. There is recharge is a defined term. Recharge means replenish and leave in place. The basin is overdrafted by 42,800 acre feet. We have, as a community, have been drinking that up since 1988. Okay, we're now behind on that. None of these projects, the Pure Water Monterey project, the ASR, and even the expansion, and you know this because we're on the Recycle Water Committee. Those projects are for direct consumption. Put a gallon in the basin, you take a gallon out. None of the other projects, other than the desal plant, are built with that excess capacity to offset that 42,800 acre feet. And that is our only defense against the saltwater intrusion. That's the natural state, the natural safe yield. So while I appreciate this effort, it's a hard time to it's hard for me to get behind it when I see all of you guys voting against the desal plan. I mean, really, you guys should be going at, and honestly, I mean, what I really see is I see kind of some of the people who have backed you guys. You guys are holding up these reports that say, yes, we're more creative and we want to delay deals, we want infill, we want all these kind of things like this, we don't have the water. That's basically saying we're still good acolytes. We're still with you, no growth. I want you to respond.
I almost don't know what to say. The last comment kind of struck me because to say that I'm with no growth is actually the exact opposite. Let me just hear me out. I would say actually I would be the strongest elected official on the opposite side of that. Mm-hmm. I am for us moving forward to not only meet the demands of this current decade in meeting our regional housing needs assessment goals for each of our regions, but to go back and do the development that was needed from decades past to the decade of the pent-up demand. We have tons of work to do, and people in my generation, millennials, are leaving the area in droves because it is so expensive to live here. So to say that I'm standing with folks that are no-growthers, sure, there might be some political alignment because of a particular issue, but I am not in support of no growth, 100%. So that first, but I really don't want to engage in a conversation about the desal project because this conversation, although it's related, this conversation is about housing. And so I understand the barriers in regards to water, but I don't want to turn the dialogue that we're having tonight into a debate about whether or not we should be doing desal. It's a very relevant point and we can have that discussion, but I don't want to take that away from the larger conversation about housing. So I respect your opinion in the direction in which you come from. And I think the feedback is received. I just wonder, is there any other feelings in regards to the need to do a study to get more information, or the idea of forming a JPA and finding some ways to do some regional collaboration? Anything outside of this huge political argument about desal. And by the way, if you and I want to sit and get coffee sometime and have that dialogue, let's do that for sure.
I want to make a public apology. I was not actually, maybe I got a little confused on that one, but I know where you are on growth. I also know where John is on it too. I guess where I question, the validity of anything that's going to come out here without actually addressing the water issue. That to me is the crux. I mean, we have all read the same reports. We have been inundated with all this, and it all comes down to the same thing. We've got great ideas, but yet we can't solve this water problem. And actually we can. I mean, this water problem is not new. This water problem actually has been a solution, and the desal plant is actually just a component to the overall water portfolio. This is, and it's a major component of it. It's actually the only one that has excess capacity for the basin. It does solve the water problem, and I think right now there are a lot of people on this peninsula who I've grown up with, my mom included, that are just petrified by this because the water solution is finally at the precipice of getting solved. So I don't think that these are unrelated or unconnected.
Sure. I think that there is a valid space to have a debate about how we move forward with desal, and I'm sure there are people that are part of the coalition that feel one way and some people that feel the other, and that's why I really just urge a conversation in this space now that we have to focus on housing, again, recognizing that these two are connected. This is going to move forward one way or another. So we have to move forward. Housing is a discussion that we have to have because people are continuing to find themselves costed out of the affordability to live in the peninsula. So you're right. Water is an important element to it. And I think that the only thing that I bring up in regards to the coalition about water is the need for us to figure out solutions for affordable housing development between now and then when the CDO is lifted, even if we do move forward with desal. So the conversation's not about desal, which is relevant towards the larger conversation, but I think in regards to the subject of the housing coalition, it's not included.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will agree with John and not go down that road again as far as desal, and we need to not only have 1 gallon in, 1 gallon out, but we need to replenish groundwater in order to stop the seawater intrusion. I was first stationed here at Fort Ord in 1981, and seawater intrusion was just starting, or at least just recognized. And obviously, I came back in 1992. In 1993 or 94, there was a ballot measure for a desal plant in Sand City that was voted down 49.5% to 50.5%, because it was told that we were going to make, I can't remember, one of the dams, Los Padres or San Clemente, bigger and better in a couple of years, and that ballot measure was going to take care of all the problems at less cost. Then the next year, that was voted down. 17 years later, I'm back on the peninsula, and we still don't have a solution. But housing is a critical item, and I agree. I have a couple concerns. One, I don't see, you talked about regional RHNA, the regional housing, yeah, the RHNA numbers, which I can't remember what RHNA stands for the
Regional Housing Needs Assessment.
Thank you. The regional housing needs assessment. I did not see how we
I'm just taking notes.
Thank
Oh, this is a problem with my council too. They can't, they get confused a lot. I apologize, I'm just taking notes.
Okay. I didn't see how and where you were, how you anticipate, I have an issue, first of all, with joint powers authority, just because we have so many already. There are just so many, and one of the things that got tabled on tonight's thing was who's gonna represent the city on which meeting at which day and who can do this. And it's 3 pages long. It's ridiculous on how many joint power and regional agencies there are out there. And I don't think another one is needed without a very, very strong justification. More government is not necessarily better government. Secondly, I didn't hear you discuss how your housing coalition, which is as it is now, or how you anticipate in the future if such a joint powers agency comes together, how you plan on working with AMBAG, whose responsibility it is to develop a regional housing needs assessment. Are we reinventing the wheel? Thank you.
Absolutely. So our group has met with AMBAG, and we don't plan to take over anything that AMBAG is doing. We're actually going to work in partnership with them. So AMBAG is responsible for allocating random numbers. That has been nothing a part of my presentation or anything that we've discussed as a coalition. That's not our goal or effort.
Well, I think that would be an absolute need, because they're the ones who say how much housing we should have, so you absolutely have to work with them.
I just said that. I just said, so I'll just reiterate just to make sure it's clear. We've met with AMBAG, their planner and their executive director. We're working in collaboration with them in an effort to be in alignment with each other. They're responsible for allocating RENA allocations to various municipalities. We're not responsible for that. We don't want to do that. But we're working in collaboration with them on achieving those goals. The goal is because, as far as I know, no city on the peninsula has ever met their RENA goal. But again, with the current administration and the direction that things are happening at the state level, an increasing amount of pressure is coming onto municipalities to make sure that they meet their goals. So the governor has talked about, as I'm sure you're aware of, withholding gas tax dollars from municipalities if they don't meet their RENA allocation. And so this is the direction that we're going in. That's just one example of the increased enforcement from the state level. Whether we like it or not, we're better served if we work together.
Oh, I agree with you, better served if we work together. I just don't see a need for another entity.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I have a question. Did you say that we have several allocation for water supplies?
So,
how did you word that?
yeah, so the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District hosted, at one of their meetings, they had agendized an item, something along the lines of allocating available water supply to affordable housing projects. And so I can't repeat them all now. Actually, I could. Just give me a second. Let me use my technology here and pull this up. So here, where they have a one slider at their meeting, and it's up to the board to decide which ones of these they want to use. But there was creating a new allocation from accumulated conservation savings, an example, ordinance 87. They gave the example of CHOMP, reclaiming recently expired water credits, seeking voluntary forfeiture of existing unused water credits, easing transfers between commercial and residential parcels. So I know that that's been a big thing for municipalities where there might be a business that has tons of water credits and they have nothing else to do with them, and they would like to get them to develop some affordable units for their employees, but they haven't been able to do so. So that is a good one I think that we're looking at. Consideration of allowing financial incentives for surrender of water credits, develop a conservation offset program, and allowing entitlements to be designated for a general place of use, freeing up potable supply elsewhere. So they have these different mechanisms that they can do within the boundaries of their control to allow us to figure out a way. The general manager basically said during the meeting, he said, there's a way that we can get the water. If the development is ready to go, there's a way that we can get the water for it.
All of these are voluntary, is that true?
No, one of them was, which I don't know too much about this one, but creating a new allocation from accumulated conservation savings, which I guess in a way that is voluntary, but if there's conservation savings, which people naturally do anyways because it reduces their cost, and
That probably exists at this point.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, they do kind of look all voluntary, but I think one of the reasons why they put these on here is because there's properties, there's spaces where they have the water allocation and they would freely give it up. So he put these on here because it's available. There's folks that want to do it, but the way that the policy is currently set up, it prevents that from allowing it to happen.
So do they have any idea of how much water they can reclaim?
I think it depends on the combination of how they move forward. It was just an initial discussion, so there was not a specific number of acre feet of water identified in that.
What is the target?
They didn't mention that in the discussion.
What do you feel is the target?
Between now and when the CDO is lifted? It's a good question. I mean, I think the problem resides more in the political will of municipalities moving forward with the development. But if, I mean, there's a lot of different factors that go into this, but let's just say hypothetically, if we had the 7 jurisdictions that are in the region were gung-ho and ready to go to move forward with any type of development, say maybe 100, 200 acre feet of water, might get us by in the next 2 years. Maybe. I don't, I'm just throwing, I'm not an expert at all in allocation resources, so I'm just guessing here. But.
Well, thank you so much for being here and explaining all this to us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On that, or through the chair. How do you guys get the water for your airport road or what's the road?
The Garden Road.
Yeah.
So the decision that we made as a council to
Tyler, could you explain?
yes,
A little bit
absolutely.
for the audience?
Yeah, so a few months back, the city council in Monterey decided to do a rezone overlay, which basically means that Garden Road is zoned commercial, light industrial. And so what an overlay does is it leaves that zoned as light industrial, but it adds a category to allow housing development. So we take overlay that allows property owners, developers to develop housing there. And that was brought forward by Rad Slama, a local developer who owns property on the south side of Garden Road, and he's already working with the city on putting some housing, converting one of the commercial spaces into housing units. So, what was the question?
The water balance, yeah, how that.
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with, I mean, the decision that the city made was to just rezone it. It's up to the property owners to figure out that. But the thing is that because they're commercial, a lot of them have tons of water anyways, so it frees them up to be able to do it. A lot of them actually have more water, and it goes back to this kind of moving allocation around. A lot of them have more water than they're gonna be able to put units there. So they could free up those available water credits and give them to another project.
What's total units, that project? Because, I know you guys probably,
Dang,
we're not looking at a specific project.
I'm gonna go to the rest of the council meetings with the Garden Road project in mind. I really can't recall. It was about, it was more of the density requirement, so it depends on the size of the lot.
Again, thank you.
Absolutely.
You're in the hot seat.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I have a go back also. Is, Mr. Salama, is he doing any affordable housing there?
Yeah, so the city of Monterey has a 20% inclusionary housing requirement for any projects that have 6 or more units. So, yeah.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for coming.
Yeah.
This is Councilman Williamson's first city council, so.
So far, so good, right?
And I look forward to hearing how other councils respond.
Absolutely.
And ways, like anything, working together regionally makes everything stronger.
Absolutely.
So-
Well, and I appreciate all your comments, and if any thoughts come up beyond this evening, please feel free to email me, tyler@monterey.org. 2 L's in my name. It's weird, I know, but I was told during the campaign that it's actually a good thing because it might help people remember me. So I guess that was a positive thing. But I actually just look forward to hearing from the community members as well. So I'll make myself available if there's any other questions.
Thank you. Very much. All right, so we're going to go into closed session. Does any? Yes.
We go into closed session.
Yes.
Sure. Is that a station?
Can you hang on just a second? Yes, okay. Sorry, it was just suggested that I go out for public comment for Mr. Wilson.
Kevin Raskoff from 4 Baxter Place. A few comments just to sort of point to John and also Luis's sort of some of the overriding issues that came to mind. One is that whether or not we end up with a desal or we don't end up with a desal, we still need to come up with a plan for this stuff. So either way, I'm personally in support of this group, and I'm also in support of this group. I don't know if a JPA is necessarily it for Luis's comment, but it needs to be more than just a group of people coming together, because we're looking at a large regional issue, that one that's as complicated, right, as has been pointed out as this. We need to have something that is big, that everyone has bought into, either literally or figuratively, and that's typically, in our region, what we do with our JPAs. So this does seem to me to be the kind of thing that a JPA is sort of meant for and typically good at. As we heard from Dennis's report, right, JPAs have a long history of functioning really well in our area, just like the landfill and other JPAs. And so I don't think we should be afraid, personally, of having a JPA. We just have to pay attention to how it's put together. Thank you.
Any public comment? All right, we're going to close public comment. And add that, Ms. Intel.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to emphasize the ability and what our city manager has accomplished since he's been here. I go to meetings, board meetings, as part of being on the city council, and I hear comments about how wonderful he is and what he's done for Del Rey Oaks. And many citizens will say, oh, Lucas, a good city, has done so much. And equally important is I go to other functions where other cities, their council members, their mayors, etc., are there, and they will come up to me. They have the knowledge of being involved in making decisions and running a city, so they're extremely knowledgeable, more than I am, and they have the highest regard for Dino and the state of our city, and I just just wanted to bring that out so that you all know how well respected he is throughout the community.
Thank you. So I'd like to open it up for any public comment in regards to the closed session. The comment had to do with the fact that we're discussing a public employee performance evaluation, as well as a conference rule under negotiators. Does anyone have any comments about the closed session topic? Seeing no public comment, I'll close public comment, and we're going to adjourn to closed session. So thank you for, if you need to leave, thank you so much for being here, and if not, please stay, we'll see you after. And we're back from closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the two closed session items, discussion was had with council, direction was provided to myself to go forward